So I just wanted to start this video off by saying that this recognition, this awakening, when it clarifies, it's not something that appears as a conclusion in time. It's ongoing, infinitely beyond time. And when we're exploring the looking itself, I'm not describing something that I'm seeing that's different from what you're seeing. When we're looking at the looking itself, what you're looking at is it, despite whether you think you've had an awakening or not, despite whether you think this non-dual clarity has revealed itself or not. What you're looking at is it already, because that's all there is. Everything else is added to after, through thought by the mind. Alright. So, do you feel like a person who is looking, a person who is here looking out at a world that you're in, a person who is here moving through a world? Does it feel like you're looking? Does it feel like the looking is something that is done by you? In the looking, see if you can find the one who is looking without using thought to confirm it, to think about it. It may just feel like that. But where does that feeling come from? If all we know of the world, let's say visually, if all we know of the world is the seeing of it, the awareness of it, then that awareness and that seeing are the same. They're the same thing. They're the same process, let's say. You can ask, is that a process, and who is that a process to? Where is the seeing? All we know of the seeing is what's seen. So we could say that the seeing and the seen are the same. They're not two. Indirect experience, in the immediate experience of it, is there a distinction? Can you find in your experience a distinction between what is seen and the seeing of it? Or what is seen, the world, the objective world, and the awareness of it? And where are you in that experience? Can you find a distinction between an experience immediately? A distinction between the one who is seeing, so you, the seer, the seeing, and the seen? Is there any distinction? Is there any separation? Is there any obvious marker of either one of those three things in the experience? Or is there just what's seen? So you could say you are the seeing. If there's no separation in your experience, if the seeing, the seer, and the seen are all one, then what is seen as you? All we can say for sure is there is the seen, because we can't find the seeing. We can't find the seer other than an imagined thought, or what might be like a feeling, an assumption. So all there is a scene, and you can't find yourself in it. It seems that there's this assumption, or for me there was this assumption of, I stop here. There was an assumed point here that I was looking out from. My experience of myself, I took myself to be something that was here, that just stopped here. But I couldn't find that point in the seeing. I couldn't find where I stopped. It wasn't there. It was an assumption. It was an idea. An imagined thought. An imagined point where the seeing starts, some space in between, and then what is seen over there. See if you can find in your experience the point where you start looking without thought, without assumption. Or if there's a feeling of it, explore that. In the seeing, where does your seeing start? Or where do you start? There may be an idea of I'm shooting the seeing out of my eyes or something like that, or the light's coming back and it stops here and I'm making the image in my head. In the experience, is that they're just in the seeing. Where does the seeing start? And where does what's seen start? In the experience, is there a space in between? Other than an assumption. This assumption seems very real, feels very real for a while until it's looked at, until it's investigated. See if you can become aware of the looking and ask yourself, where is the seeing? Where is the looking? Where am I looking from? Really question that. Look. See if you can look at the looking. Where am I seeing from? In this, you won't find it. You won't find where you start other than a thought and assumption. It's just not there. Is that not weird? Is that not weird how it's just not there? It's just a thought. It's just something we learned and took as reality, as something that was real. There's no window here that we're looking out from. It never starts anywhere other than a thought, in the direct experience of it. So there would be an assumed point here, that I just assumed that I start from here and I'm looking out from this point, where I always am. And there's space in between, and what I'm looking at stops over there. And then the whole mind structure about that. But upon investigation, none of that was there. And then the idea of distance this way and that way, forwards and back, this stopping point here where I stopped, where I am inside the head, the space in between and where the image I'm looking at starts and stops, collapses. So then it seems like what's over there is where it is, but it's over there. I'm aware of it here, but I'm not aware of it over there and here in front of me. It just goes on infinitely. There's no start and stop to it. See if you can find the beginning and the end of your seeing in any direction other than a thought. And this goes for all senses as well. If all we know about any experience is only possible through the awareness of it, then is the awareness and the experience separate? Can we ever truly say that? Other than an imagination or a thought? Or is it all one? Is it all not two, not separate? So this point, this center point here, this point where I start and the world stops and I'm in here and the world's out there, when that collapses, what also collapses is the experience that everything is solid. This is a solid world of objects and I'm in it, in here, and the world's out there. And you see that you are the looking, if you could put it that way, but there's no me in it, other than all of it. And all there is of the looking, all there is of the seeing is the seen. So you experience yourself as the seer, the seen, and the seeing all at the same time, to the point where it's not even appropriate to make those statements and categories, because it's too immediate, it's too obvious. The same with the sound. If all that, my only experience of the sound is the awareness of it, then see if you can find a difference, a distinction between the awareness, me being aware, and the sound itself. Is the hearing separate from the sound? Is the one who's hearing separate from the hearing or the sound? And where is it? Is there a framework of thought around that? Kind of copying and overlaying a structure, a symbol about what it is and what it means, to orient yourself as this body as this identity into a spatial map, a spatial place, where I'm here and that sound is a something over there, and just in the immediate sound itself. See if you can replicate a sound. So you can make a repetitive sound like this. See how your mind copies it. And then when I stop, continue playing the sound in your mind. See how it's exactly the same. Now see if you can notice that in the experience of the sound again. If I tap like this, see if you can notice yourself, your mind self, following that along as a thought, as an imagination. Become aware of the distinction between those two, and then drop the thought, or notice the thought, and see that the thought isn't the sound. So it's enjoyable about listening to nature or new music, concert, because the sound is immediate. We're drawn to that experience of the pure sense, that unpredictability of it, that mystery of it, the beauty of it. So in a sense, the senses become hollow, they become empty, but at the same time they're filled with a vividness, of clarity of experience that overwhelms the sense of the one who's trying to understand it. And the pure sense itself overtakes in its clarity to the extent that all there is the scene, all there is the sound, the heard. Even with thought. See if you can find the thinker in the substance of thought. And for a while it really feels like I am the thinker, I am the thought. The thought is mine. See if you can see that that's another thought. That's another assumption, that's another idea. See if you can, let's say, observe the thoughts, but not from a point of view analysing the thoughts or thinking about the thoughts. Go right into the substance of thought and see if there is a thinker there. When we are fully aware, let's say, of the thought stuff, the substance of thought, by directing attention directly towards it, directly into it, then the objective content of the thought, as a narrative, as a story, becomes less enticing, and the thought itself becomes much more interesting. What is that? What is it made of? Where is it? The actual thought, what is it made of? The substance of it. Pure knowingness, pure awareness that makes the knowing of that, the experience of that possible, isn't separate from the thought stuff itself. And that's what you essentially are. The seen, the thought, the heard, the knowingness that is all of that, the awareness that is all of that, not separate from it, is you. So then there's no need to resist any experience, any part of this experience. There's no need to resist it, because it's seen that it's total. It is all you. There's no one who's inside it trying to control it, trying to resist it, trying to look for a better version of it. But there's no one outside it to analyse it. You're lost in it. Wherever you are is it. So whatever idea of yourself that you can have is completely, hopelessly lost in it. So then you can just let go and let yourself dissolve into the experience of it. For me, the looking, the scene, it's so fascinating, so infinitely mysterious, just that there's no way I can even describe what this experience is like, because it's not an experience. When that framework drops away, it's indescribable and infinitely fascinating, and it never gets old. It's always brand new. But even when the mind twists itself up trying to understand that, there came a point for me where that became very enjoyable, to the point where it kind of stopped happening. So it starts off as fear, the experience that reality is closing in. I can't find myself in it. No distance, direction, or form that can be grabbed onto and analysed and referenced. Very frightening, but then gradually that experience of the mind going trying to hold on to something becomes enjoyable, pushing it to its limits, and then not seeking it out, but just an interest, a curiosity in that experience, and then eventually the experience fizzles out and it becomes completely normal, natural, but at the same time infinitely trippy, infinitely bizarre, infinitely incredible, and it feels just like pure love for the fact that this even is. And it's funny because you could see that you were always, the assumption that you were looking at a world was always it. The scene was always the scene. And what was added to it as an assumption, as a thought, was what was making it look like something that could be known, making it look like something tangible. The one who is experiencing, the one that all this experience, this life, these senses refer to and are owned by. Once that doesn't have to be there, the person here, the one here, once that doesn't have to be there, there's just it's just infinite love. That's what it feels like. Infinite peace, infinite love, infinite acceptance, inclusion. And it can be felt infinitely. It's an inherent love in everything. Because it is all things. But believing what I'm saying isn't enough, because that's something that's knowable by the mind. That's a conclusion. Look for yourself, experience for yourself. See that there is only the seen. In the looking, can you find looking other than what's being looked at? And can you find the one looking? Really look for it without the mind. You're looking from it. You are the looking. And all we know of the looking, the seeing, is what's seen. So that's you, if you can phrase it that way. You're always looking at yourself. And then when you can finally see yourself, there's kind of self-love that is indescribable. You just become lost in looking forever right now, because that's all there is. And there becomes less of an effort in the looking for something, separating the senses and then practicing in the senses. There's a contraction in that. Eventually that contraction releases, and then all the senses merge into an indistinguishable single non-experience from which all experiences are born in time. And if there is a you, that's where you always are. But it can never be found, because it's too free to be captured. Anyway, that'll do for now. I'll talk to you next time.